Steve the high sign, and we're good to go.
So is Arlen on his way?
He is. He'll be in just a minute. Yep.
Here he comes.
Hey, Arlen.
There you go. Oh, I gotta get this thing going. Trying to be late.
Oh, that's okay. Put a high.
I had all Peggy's gone. My daughter's over, so. How many horses do you guys have? How many?
Okay, welcome everyone. I'm a couple minutes late. I apologize. I'd like to call a meeting to order at 7:07. First thing is the consent agenda items. Minutes of the August 3rd, 2020 school board meeting and August 10th school board special meeting. Professional staffing recommendations. So I request and consent to minutes of the professional staffing recommendations. Do I have a motion for the consent agenda item? Craig? Second? Ann, thank you. Any questions? Any questions or comments on them? What?
There we go. Okay. We have a little sound issue here, but I think we got it. Can everybody hear okay?
I see Tom.
Tom's shaking his head no.
Negative.
Christine, you can't hear me?
Oh, I can hear you. Arlen's a little garbled.
And I think Steve was playing something back, but it looks like he's muted now.
I think we got his, yep, he was.
Okay.
The YouTube feed was coming in through his machine, but we got that.
Ah,
Yep.
sounds
Right.
good. I thought I was just having deja vu,
Oh,
deja
it's
vu,
just-
deja vu.
You get to watch the meeting twice.
Gotta love technology.
Okay. Sorry about all of that. Everybody can hear me okay, though? Great. All right. Thanks. Okay. Sorry, Arlen. Go ahead.
So we, consent agenda items, we got a motion from Craig, second from Ann. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes by majority. Personnel items not necessary for vote and public comments. Do you have any public comments?
We did not receive any public comments this
So then
evening.
we roll right into superintendent's report.
Okay.
We roll right into superintendent's report.
I am going to share my screen. I'm going to share my screen with everyone. And tonight's, bear with me for one moment, please. Tonight's update will be quite brief in comparison to our previous updates. But the reason for that is because we've spent the last 6 weeks or so really working on our planning and determining our course of action. And so now we're kind of through the decision-making stage for the time being and into operating the plan. So I will give everybody an update on where we stand with things for this evening. We are going to talk about, I'll do a brief current public health status update, and then I'll give an update on how we're progressing through step 1, and then just a couple comments about staffing. For public health status, we have, this is today's daily information from Dane County. We have in Dane County over 4,800 confirmed cases of COVID, 214,700 some tests total, 313 cases hospitalized in the entire history of the disease in Dane County. And sadly, we've had 39 people pass away due to COVID as of today. The new case data, and we always look at the new case data for in terms of what's the trend in new caseload from day to day and also over the last 7 days. And you can see this last area here represents the activity last week. So from a high point in late June, early July, we've sort of stair-stepped our way down a little bit, like we're coming down a mountain with the gradual, when you average things out over 7-day periods, it's a gradual decline. It's not a completely steady trend, as you can see. So there's certainly conditions, it's fair to say conditions in Dane County are improving, but they're not as good as where they were in early May when we were, wrapping up the springtime there. So still a ways to go yet, but, we're heading in the right direction, which is encouraging. The metrics for Dane County that are reported in the Forward Dane plan these are the same data metrics that I presented last Monday. This past week, Dane Public Health Madison-Dane County announced that they would be shifting their schedule on reporting from a Monday afternoon report time to a Thursday afternoon report time. So we'll have new data this Thursday, August 20th. The data that are here, these are the same metrics that I presented last week that are from the Forward Dane plan in terms of percent of positive tests being categorized as green. Cases per day is still red. Lab reporting timeliness and contact tracing was yellow as of August 10th, which was an improvement over the previous 2 to 3 weeks. That's important because the faster that the labs can handle the testing, turnaround, and the contact tracing, the better handle we can get on isolating cases and preventing further spread, which will then impact this community spread metric, which is, as a reminder, community spread is a situation in which the source case of a positive test result cannot be identified, and so it can't be isolated to present further spread of the disease. So these data are about a week old, but we'll have new data coming on Thursday this week. And so at our next board meeting, I'll have an update of current data. And just as a reminder, the public health implications of COVID are well known. Everybody is at risk of contracting COVID. When I'm on my public health calls, that we're often reminded, just assume that when you leave the house, you're going to encounter COVID, and then take precautions to prevent getting infected. So that includes wearing a face covering, being very diligent about hand washing, about distancing and the rest. Hand sanitizer, frequent washing of the hands, be very careful about not sharing equipment, sharing objects, and that sort of thing. And of course, all of those precautions are built into our, they're built into our reopening plan, especially as we're first bringing staff in, we're following those precautions. And then also once we start having students on site, those precautions will be in place as well. And we've talked about that in quite a bit of detail at previous meetings. So that's the public health update. Again, not a lot new. We are waiting on one additional piece. Dane County Public Health has a draft of school closing and reopening metrics to be used when school begins. They have not released that draft yet because they are waiting on DHS at the state level to produce similar guidance statewide. And so Dane County Public Health is being very proactive in the sense that they want to be certain that what they put forward is in alignment with what comes from DHS. And so we will not have our local metrics from Dane County Public Health until DHS releases statewide recommendations. We were told that those would be coming last week. They were delayed. We're now hoping that they come this week at DHS level, and then that will allow public health to respond. So as soon as we get those, I will certainly share them with everyone, but we don't have the local data yet. So that's important because as we think about making our decision locally to transition from step 2 remote learning, McFarland virtual plan, to an in-person hybrid plan, we want to be we have metrics that we've developed internally that we reviewed with public health and we've reviewed with Dr. Merwin, our district medical advisor, and they've said these are good decision points to use. And it would be nice if public health gave us some really precise ones that they'd like us to see used countywide. So when those come in, that's when that information comes in, that's where it will come into play, is in deciding on when to move steps. So yes, Craig.
Quick.
Craig, could I ask you to unmute your microphone? Okay.
Just a quick thought. So based upon what you just said, does that mean that statewide public health is going to have one single plan for the entire state? Or are they going to take into account that there are counties up north that only have 2 or 3 cases? Is that county going to work under the same set of rules and regulations that Dane County is, even though they're wildly different in terms of number of cases and that sort of thing?
That's a great question. My understanding of what DHS is developing is, could you mute your microphone again, please, Craig? Thanks. My understanding of what DHS is developing is that they are developing decision criteria to be used statewide, but it doesn't mean that every county is going to be doing exactly the same thing. It'll be, if your county looks like this, then these are the recommended steps. If your county looks like this, then these are the recommended steps you should take based on what you're seeing public health wise in your own locality. So that's where public health locally, Madison-Dane County Public Health is waiting on that to come from DHS, so that the thinking that they're developing is consistent with that overall framework. So we won't see a single statewide plan, other than in the same way that DPI released statewide guidance documents for reopening schools and planning considerations. It'll be statewide in that sense, and it's the same resource that can be used all over the state, but it'll be applied differently based on what your local situation looks like.
That only makes good sense.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it, given the vast differences.
So that's what we're going with. Oh, could I ask you again? Thanks. There we go. So that's public health. In terms of where we are with our reopening process, just as a refresher, just a recap, we have a 5-step process, beginning with bringing in our staff on site first. And then that's step 1. And then in step 2, when school begins, that will be virtual instruction provided by McFarland educators, and including in-person supports, virtual in-person supports. That's step 2. That will begin on September 1. Step 3, when we're ready to transition to step 3, when the public health conditions permit, will be half of our students attending school on site at a time. That'll, for the most part, be a morning and afternoon session. And just a quick review, but it will be half the kids in the morning and then the other half of the students in the afternoons. And then when step 4 happens, when public health conditions, as they continue to improve, we'll be able to have all of our students with us on site at the same time. They will continue to be in groups that don't mix, and so that'll be that's important, that if you have a class of 20 students, say in a grade school class, that they don't mix and shuffle around with kids in the other classes, and that's important to prevent spread and just reducing risk of contagion. And then step 5 is traditional in-person attendance, in essence what school looked like pre-COVID, to the extent that we can imagine that happening. And that will be, most likely that will not happen until there's a vaccine and or a therapy that will be available for that. So that's just as a refresher about how our plan is designed. Yes, Greg.
Are we going to, as long as there's a 6-foot separation requirement, we would be unable to move from step 3 to step 4, isn't that correct? I mean,
Yes, that is correct. I'm glad you mentioned that. That in the Dane County Public Health rules for operating schools, there's a requirement for a 6-foot separation between students and between teachers and students, and that is the sticking point in between step 3 and step 4. And then once that is lifted, then we'd be allowed to have all of our students in. So we're currently in step 1, which is staff in the buildings, and we are starting to see staff come back in. There's certainly flexibility for staff to work on site and work remotely if they need to. This morning, we began with our first official day of new teacher orientation. All of our board members were able to join that Zoom session this morning. Thank you very much to all of you for being a part of that. That was really great that you could take time to welcome our new colleagues to the district. And I really appreciate you doing that. And it's always very well received when you're able to spend time with our teachers. We had our introductions this morning, and then that group broke into 2 smaller groups. So our new teachers had some professional development sessions led coordinated by Melissa Foll, our Director of Teaching and Learning, and some other colleagues on a variety of topics. And then the other group that was part of that first session was our new teacher mentors, the folks who will be mentoring our new colleagues this year. We had an orientation program for our mentors that I was able to be a part of with Mark Hoyer and Kelly Thompson and Ann Weiland and all of our new teacher mentors. So that went very well also. And then we broke for lunch, and then the new teachers had activities in their own work to do and continuing with their building principles throughout the day. We normally on this day have a social at the end of the day here in town just to relax and visit a little bit. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do that today because of the COVID situation, of course. But we are looking forward to doing something like that in the future when we're able to. So we'll have some social time to make up for. Our full staff will be back on the 24th. We'll do an all staff welcome back program the morning of the 24th. That's a week from today. It'll be over Zoom. And so it will look and feel very different than what we're accustomed to, but it'll be a new opportunity to start a year. It'll be yes. Yep. 8, yep. Exactly. 8 to the welcome back will be 8 to 9. Yep. And so if you be a part of that would be fantastic. And so that's step 1. And then we go to step 2 begins on September 1, which is our McFarland virtual plan, which is remote instruction with virtual in-person supports. We're beginning K-12 remotely, as we've talked about before, virtual instruction. And 4K, 4-year-old kindergarten, will begin in person. And we talked about that last week because 4K, while they have many of the same rules in place involving cohorting of students and hygiene protocols and response if there's an exposure or an outbreak or a positive case, those are virtually identical to the K-12 rules. The one thing that they don't have is a 6-foot separation requirement. They do have a requirement of a class size limit of 15, and our 4K program is naturally designed within those parameters, and so we can operate our 4K program in person. We are not able to offer virtual 4K in the same sense that we're offering virtual instruction for K-12, but we are preparing resources for parents of 4-year-olds, 4K students who would elect not to send their students to 4K at this time that they can use with their children remotely. So it will not be synchronous instruction, but it'll be resources for families. So those are in development and will be ready soon.
Quick question.
Yeah.
I think the requirement, correct me if I'm mistaken, is it 5 or younger or younger than 5 aren't necessarily required to wear masks, but our 4K program is going to require them nonetheless?
That's correct. Yep. Yes, our 4K program will be having our students wear masks as a precaution. So just as a reminder, we also have some no earlier dates in terms of transition. I just want to be really clear. This slide shows the dates that are the earliest dates that we would possibly move from step 2 to step 3. We are not, this is in no way a guarantee we're going to be able to move on these dates, but this would be the earliest that we would consider moving. And we set these dates to assist with planning, both internally for internal staff planning, particularly for operational planning, and also for families just to have some sense of certainty as to how long step 2 will go. So K2, we will transition no earlier than September 17th. In grades 3 through 8, we will transition no earlier than September 24th. And the high school will begin in step 3 no earlier than second quarter, although the caveat there is that some high school classes that are more hands-on in nature will begin meeting in person, or may begin meeting in person sooner than the end of first quarter, as conditions allow. So you might see some tech ed classes or some performing arts classes or some other things meeting in person. Classes that don't lend themselves to remote learning as easily as some of the other ones. And of course, those transitions are all going to be contingent upon the public health data metrics that we review each week and our own staff and student health metrics. We want to keep a close eye on making sure our staff are healthy and our students are healthy, and then also in consultation with our district medical advisor, Dr. Tom Merwin. And then the last piece is staffing, and this is brief, but I just want to touch on a couple of things. We are in the process of engaging building-specific substitute teachers for the 2021 school year. Melissa and Lauren and Jeff and I are meeting on Wednesday to keep that process moving forward and have folks identified who can be helpful to the district, and it's also helpful for them for planning, obviously. And then we're also looking at any potential additional staffing needs to support remote learning and student engagement in steps 2 and 3. So step 2 is essentially fully virtual with limited in-person supports. Step 3 is the 50-50 hybrid. And in both of those situations, there are going to be significant amounts of time where students will be learning off-site and meeting away from school. So we want to be certain we're fully prepared to support students with that engagement, and then we can make sure everybody's connected and engaged and be able to provide support where we're needing it. So we're looking at, we're working with all of our principals and our student services department to make sure that we haven't left anything out that we should be thinking about. So that's our staffing conversation. I see Christine has a question.
Yep, thanks, Andrew. So with the first point, engaging building specific substitute teachers. I know you're meeting Wednesday, so you probably have very few details on that, but I do remember that coming up at our retreat, back in June when we were talking about what are all the supports and needs that the school district might have. So is that part of that discussion? And can you talk a little bit about it, knowing that you haven't met yet?
Sure, be glad to. Thanks for the question. So we typically engage our guest teachers, our substitute teachers, through Teachers on Call. That's our partner organization, and we anticipate continuing to do that. There may also be some needs for supporting students on site who would come in even during virtual learning. We want to make sure that we have, that can look like, that won't be the same as a teacher teaching a class, but it'll look a little bit possibly like a study hall supervisor proctor situation. So you would need to be able to have an adult in a room with a number of students to one, help to make sure that they're connected to the technology, but also just if they have some organizational assistance that they need or some other types of things to be able to help with that. Some of those things might be educational assistant type roles. Some of them might be overloads or extended FTE for a teacher. It just depends on what those specific needs are. So those are the things we're hoping to iron out on Wednesday. But the thing that's important to keep in mind is that, particularly with our substitute teachers, now that we have a sense of what the structure is going to look like, we want to make sure that we're able to invite people to help us with that, and so that they're available to help us and not seeking employment elsewhere as they may need to do. So that's one of the things we're trying to balance as well. Christine.
Engaging building specific. So would you not necessarily use teachers on call? And the reason why I ask is, I guess I'm a little bit concerned with the idea that there are teachers who are subbing in other places one day and then coming in the next day here. Is there any way we can not do that? I mean, that just seems like we're introducing a lot of variables with that.
So that's a great question. That's our concern as well. And one of the things we're exploring with Teachers on Call is to identify a guest teacher to be committed to a building for an extended period of time.
Okay,
And so that they're not, substituting in one school district on Monday and substituting
Right.
with us on Wednesday and the rest. So
right.
Andrew, would it help
Oh.
if I kind of gave an overview?
yes, please do, Jeff. I'm sorry, I didn't
Yeah.
see I don't have everybody's face on my screen. Let me
That's okay.
stop sharing my screen here.
Okay.
Okay, got it.
So Christine, we have been engaged for many weeks with Teachers on Call, reviewing their protocols, reviewing how they're going about the process, because they also are multi-state as well. Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Iowa, very large organization. And so we've been meeting with them a couple weeks ago. Melissa and I had a great meeting with them to finalize where we thought we would be heading and what we'd be committing to, and our ideas about, again, trying to having building specific substitutes. That includes the fact that even as early as last week, there was a survey out to their TOC members that subbed with us the last 2 years, who's interested in virtual, who's interested in person. And then that allowed us to start this week the process of giving to our principals, what 5 to 10 people might be the folks that you would most like to have dedicated to your facility. And so we've been working with this. I think what Andrew kind of was mentioning about Lauren, Melissa, and I meeting on Wednesday is the fact that all of us have been able to meet the last few weeks on this topic, but we've been doing our pieces to get us there. But this is like the second time I've seen Andrew today, or the last 2 weeks due to some other situations. So we're really on this. We have over actually 50 substitute teachers that have indicated that they're willing to do in person. And these are folks that have been with us over the last couple of years. So we're moving forward with that process.
Yeah, and I love it. I think it's great, and I know you guys are going to do the best. I guess my only follow-up question then is there any value to the district actually hiring and not going through Teachers on Call, like actually hiring staff that would serve in a role instead of going through TOC?
The TOC model over the years has really allowed so that we can engage any of our former retired employees so that they're not breaking any WRS rules, Wisconsin Retirement System rules, until any of that flexibility is voted on by the legislature, or even brought forward to legislature. This is one of the tools why we've kept that in place. It also allows us to have the levels of our office, our business office that has to process people, and our district office. So, this has been in conjunction also with Monona and Middleton over the last several years. So it has been a really good partnership.
Great. I know we're in strange times, which is why, just looking at various different models, why it came to me, but I don't know the ins and outs. So I look forward to hearing what you guys decide. Thank you.
Thanks, Christine, and thanks very much, Jeff. So that's the big or a big project for this week, is to get that buttoned up, and that is my report for this evening as far as an update. So as I said, the big decisions have been made. We're following the plan now. We're working our plan and monitoring the public health conditions and the rest, and looking forward to greeting our full staff a week from today and greeting our students on September 1.
Do you want to go over the school dates?
Oh, yes. Yep. So the school board meeting dates, thank you. I appreciate that, Arlen. We had penciled in some special meeting dates that we've been meeting on a weekly basis since late July. And we have two. Tonight is our second regular meeting here in August. And we have 2 more Mondays in August. So the question that I had for the board was, given where we are with our planning, do we want to continue to hold special meetings for the next 2 weeks? Do we want to wait until our next regular meeting and have an update then? I don't anticipate bringing things to you over the next 2 weeks that are going to require decisions to be made along with respect to our plan between now and then. And I can certainly keep you updated in person at a meeting or via, the email communications that I send out. But I just wanted to put that on the table for this evening and see what people's thoughts were about having special meetings the next 2 Mondays, or letting those go and reconvening in September. I think we could do either one and it would be fine.
So we would have one on the 24th and the 31st?
We had tentatively set ourselves to have a special meeting every Monday up until the time
Right.
school starts.
Right.
So we would be letting those two go.
Oh, letting those two go.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Well, my thoughts would be that we shouldn't plan to go, fly to Europe or something in the next week or two, but maybe just kind of keep it open, because I would think if anything pops up that us being available would be really valuable. I'm only saying that because I'm guessing not many of us are doing much of anything, but I guess what I should say is I'm happy to keep that time open, knowing that we might need it. And then we can not have it if you don't need us to meet.
That was exactly what I would say.
That works. Works for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I think the important thing for me is making sure information is publicly available. I know we get information, but making sure the information gets up on the website, I suppose, or through email to parents, or however we do that.
Right.
That's a good point.
Yep. Go ahead, Craig.
Let me get over here. Come on. Oh, I'm in the wrong place, excuse me.
There we go.
Yeah, I think that's good, sound strategy. If something should come up, that might drastically change something, obviously having the dates open is wise. But I will share that over the last week or so, I've had a handful, maybe more, just kind of people that are around compliment the district very much in terms of how everything has been communicated thus far. I think the folks I've spoken to are content in knowing that we have a plan that we're going to start with. Those that have attended via, streaming or however it may be in the last few meetings, I think those have convinced people that we're doing it in a scientifically sound, logically appropriate manner, that we're making decisions, and they appreciate the communication that the district has provided thus far. So I think just keep on doing what we're doing, and you make sure that the board is in the loop, and if we feel a need to get together, then we can be light enough on our feet that we should be able to get together.
Well, I will plan on doing the same weekly updates that I do for everybody that I have been doing.
Yeah.
And if we happen to if we decide we need a board meeting, we'll decide that. We would need to decide that on Thursday so we can post the meeting on Friday, meet on Monday. But I'll plan on doing a weekly update regardless. So we'll keep that communication going. So, okay. That is my report for this evening.
Do you want to go into the board goals?
Sure. There's not a lot new to report there. Our diversity and equity goal, the board resolution that we passed over the summer is, I made that central to my remarks this morning in welcoming our new staff, but also with our mentors. And we talked about how there's some really specific action points that are in that resolution that we're already working on, and we'll continue to work through curriculum revision, professional development, and some other pieces of that are very important. So we had, since that was passed over the summer, this was the first opportunity I'd had with a group of colleagues here to really talk about that in depth. So that'll be also, I'll be talking about that quite a bit more in our welcome back message next week as well. The staff survey is one of the pieces that came out of that was the exit interviews. So we are in data collection with our exit interviews right now. That should be wrapping up here in the next couple of weeks. School Perceptions was very kind to allow us to let them know, if somebody were leaving later in the summer, they would allow us to continue to invite that person to participate as well. So there've been a couple of cases of those types of things. So we should be getting information back from them in September. And then once that comes back, then we can take that up at the board and review that information and then just continue to do that every year. I'm sure, like any process.
Doing it with us, and how do you plan? What's your ideas?
Oh, well, I think, when we did the staff survey last time, we had a special meeting to look at it. And I think that makes sense to handle it in a similar way. I don't know exactly what the
You would
report will look
probably
like yet,
have
but
to be more or less, would that be a closed one? Because it's kind of confidential.
I will look
Because
at,
that's people's, you know what I mean? Exit interview isn't
let's look at how the report comes back.
Yeah.
We have to be very careful about what's allowable in closed session. And I'm not sure if that would be allowable in closed session or not, depending on what's in that information. But if it's anonymized information, there would be no need for it to be enclosed. I'll be working with them to see how they structure the report here in the coming weeks. And I think I'll have a better sense of how we can work through it once we get a sense of what that'll look like.
I'm
Yeah.
just curious.
Yeah. So, right. And then as far as district,
Christine has a question.
oh, thank you. Sorry.
No, that's okay. A couple of things, Andrew. Did you mention that we had moved ahead in the grant? I don't remember if you mentioned
Oh
that.
my gosh, I don't remember that I did. Thank you for reminding me that.
Yeah, of course.
So we had back in the spring. Well, when was it? In June.
It was June 14th.
June 4th. Yes, the date that lives in the mind. We applied for a Wisconsin Partnership Project grant to support our work with Natural Circles of Support, and Christine is our academic partner through her position at UW. And then it's the school faculty and Jeffrey Lewis, Natural Circles of Support, and his team. We've been working with Jeffrey and Circles for, oh my goodness, about 4 years now. So we were invited, we were advanced in the process, in the application process. We are one of 12 applicants who will be part of the final presentation, the final review process in October. And then 6 of those 12 are funded. And so we'll be preparing for that. And that's an exciting opportunity for us. We hope to be successful with it. But I think we have a strong proposal, a strong concept, and I'm hopeful that we'll be successful. So I'll keep you posted. But,
Very good.
yeah, Christine, thank you for mentioning that. I appreciate that very much.
Well, in the scheme of things, it was like an email that blipped and we went, oh, okay, and then moved on to go back to work because it was one of those things.
But that's exciting. That's very exciting. As far as district and village collaboration, we are looking to, once we have school up and running, we'll schedule a village liaison, district and village liaison meeting. It'd be a good opportunity for us to touch base. We've had some ongoing topics with school resource officer and McFarland Youth Center planning, and then with both the village board and the school board taking up resolutions on diversity and equity work, there's a good opportunity for collaboration in that area, those areas as well. So we'll work on getting that scheduled here before too long. Mr. Howery.
Could you please, and forgive me for not knowing this off the top of my head, who amongst the board is the village district liaison folks? I was on it previously. I can't remember if I'm back on it now or not.
As I recall, well, Christine, are you raising your hand as you're one of the representatives? That's right. It's Arlen and Christine are the two representatives, and you might be. I'd have to look. You might be an alternate.
Okay.
Yeah. You were the alternate.
No. I have a
Oh.
different question.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
I've moved on.
Okay.
Um,
Ann, could I ask you to unmute your mic, please?
Can you just give us a little update on what's going on with the youth center, given COVID and everything and us going back into session?
I could help a little bit.
I have not had a lot of communication with the youth center in the last few weeks, so I'm not certain what their programming looks like. But Craig, you serve on their board.
Yes. Yes, that's correct. And the McFarland Youth Center Board has been meeting monthly via Zoom. There's been no in-person meetings, and they are, I'd say, proceeding kind of as normal, but nothing is absolutely as normal anymore. So they're in a manner taking a wait and see kind of attitude to see what would work best in terms of, the space restrictions, the distancing, the masks, the whole 9 yards. So I don't know that anything is carved in stone quite yet, but I do know that outside of I think 1 month maybe where we didn't meet, there's been regular monthly meetings via Zoom of the board. So they're trying.
But no kids are
No,
going.
no kids.
Thanks, Craig.
So we move on?
Yep, I think we're ready. All right.
So that's
Next is action items.
action
Action on
children
children
at
at risk.
Administration.
Administration
Recommend
recommend
approval
approval
of the attached children at risk.
children at risk.
And so we can have a motion, then we can discuss it.
Yep.
I'll move to approve the children at risk plan.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you, Ann.
Second. Okay.
Okay,
I gotta
I gotta look
on
on
the
the
screen.
screen if anybody else.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
And then I'm going to just mute your microphone, Arlen. Okay, Lauren Arango is going to speak about the at-risk plan this evening. So she'll turn on her microphone and camera, and here we go.
Hello. I'm actually kind of excited to talk about something that we normally talk about, which is the at-risk plan. So every year you vote on adopting our at-risk plan, which is a plan that we have to discuss annually that really looks at what are we going to do for our students who are at risk of not graduating. And you'll see in the packet that you received, there's specific criteria that we look at that considers a student to be at risk. And perspective-wise, we have around 10 to 15 kids a year who actually meet the definition of being at risk. So it's a very small population. However, I would say because of this plan, it is a small population. So we don't just use this plan for our students who meet that DPI criteria of being at risk. We have a plan for those student support teams, those SSTs, to come together when they have a student that is struggling. So there are different interventions put in place depending on why a student is struggling, and different teams in hopes that we don't have students who meet that legal definition of at risk. So this report this year looks almost identical to what last year's looks like. Last year, we had some major changes to this report. This year, there aren't many. I think the only change really is the promotion, placement, and retention policy was updated, as you know. So that was updated in this plan as well. Are there any specific questions that you would have for me? Right, thank you.
Thanks very much, Lauren.
Thank you, Lauren.
So is there any questions or comments? Hearing none, motion from Ann.
Wait,
Oh, Christine?
Oh, I missed you, Christine. I was.
no. You know what? That's okay.
Oh, we're good?
Muted herself.
Okay, I think she's okay.
All right. Motion from Ann, second from Craig. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
That's by majority. Board comments. Anything the board would like to share?
I do stuff.
Yes, I do, actually.
I see Christine and Craig have comments.
Okay. Christine, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Oh, she says, go ahead, Craig.
I've just got a couple of things in passing here. I suspect that this will be happening among virtually all of the broadband people and the carriers around, but I did get a message on my phone today. I have US Cellular. that we may have some interruptions in service in the next 24 to 48 hours because they are switching their service to 5G. So I suspect a lot of carriers will be doing that in anticipation of school starting and the demands that are going to be put on bandwidth and such within the community. So I think we'll be seeing more of that. And secondly, I just wanted to mention that the public comment from former board member Tom Mooney that we listened to last meeting was in the State Journal earlier this week. I can't remember if it was Friday or Saturday, somewhere along that. But Tom's letter was also in the Wisconsin State Journal. I think that's all I have.
Craig, will you remind me? I know that Tom has written a number of really great letters. Which one are you referring to?
This was one that he strongly urged board members to go into the schools when we are able to get a good idea of those whose feet are on the street, so to say, what their day is like. A day in the life of a McFarland teacher during a pandemic. I think that's wise. I know, you walk a fine line sometimes as a board member just showing up in a class. We forget sometimes that we may, I guess, be intimidating in a way to a teacher just coming in and sitting down in the class. So I think before anybody chooses to do that, you might want to just touch base with the teacher and let them know the reason that you're there, and you're not evaluating anyone or looking, to make any decisions staff-wise. It just we need to be out there and know what these teachers are going through every day. And I think it's wise. I agree with Tom.
If I could just add a comment on that. I know one of the points that Tom raised in his letter was we need to all be mindful that when students come back in a 50-50 attendance model where they're spaced 6 feet apart, that's not going to look like what we all picture school looking like normally. And we've spent a lot of time with our administrative team doing exactly that this summer. We mocked up a number of different classrooms to look at, well, what does a third grade room look like when there's desks are 6 feet apart, and how many people can you actually fit in that space, and so on. So we've done a lot of that administratively. We haven't done that with the board. We'll want to make sure to do that before we make a decision to transition, so that you have a very good sense of what that looks like and feels like in anticipation of what that step 3 hybrid scenario will be like. So he raises a lot of very good points in that letter.
Mm-hmm.
Dan.
I just wanted to say that I don't think you were on the board when we had discussed this all as a board, but as a matter of professional courtesy, before we go into a school as a board member, we speak to the principal and try and establish a mutually satisfactory time for us to come in so that we're not interrupting the school day, and that people are aware that we're going to be around. I wasn't sure if you were on, so yeah. Okay, so we just don't, as a matter of course, just pop in.
Yep. I agree, obviously.
Christine, okay, go ahead, Christine.
Okay, thank you. So I did attend the WEVA meeting, my first board meeting last week. I believe it was Thursday. And that was a really great meeting to get some insight into the schools through WEVA, the virtual academy. As you can imagine, the number is, there's an uptick to the number. So I just wanted to share that I met. I don't know if we have committee reports at all, and if this is the place to do such a thing. This is my first time doing such a thing. So I don't know if I can get a little feedback on that, Andrew. Yeah.
I would suggest that as a board comment, you could certainly speak to that meeting, and then we would just discuss it, but we would put it on our agenda for our next meeting.
If we needed to discuss something from it. Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, I did want you to know that I attended my first WEVA meeting as the representative. Also, there is quite a lot of grassroots organizing in the community right now around racial equity and justice, and it's starting to touch upon education and the village and the community in general. Quite a large group organizing to do different events, things like voter registration and book studies, talking with the library to get more diverse speakers or books in the library. If that's the case, I'm not saying they don't. I'm just saying those are the ideas that are being generated right now. So we might, as a board, be hearing from some of those folks around education. I think the murder of George Floyd and what happened with the event that Letitia Hollard and Sean Chisholm, some of our youth leaders, put on back in June, and the resolutions that came from it really has spurred on a number of people to feel like they need to be more engaged. So that's been kind of a neat thing to be watching. And then this is related to our so that's one of our priority goals. Connecting with the village is one of our priority goals. But one of the goals that we talked about with the staff survey was more communication from the board. And I'm wondering if during these 2 weeks that we might want to draft a letter or something to the community. We haven't had much, I know people have been watching us, but there hasn't been anything back and forth. So I was just wondering if there was anything we might want to do as a board to make sure that we're communicating with the staff and so on. So just a thought that I wondered about. Oh, sorry, and I know we can't discuss this. I know this is just board comments, but I'll throw it out there.
How does the rest of the board feel about what Christine said? That's your guys' read. Or should we think about it and bring it back next? We got some time, whatever you want to do.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear a thing Arlen said.
Oh, really?
Christine, did you hear Arlen's comment a moment ago? Okay. Hold on. Arlen, could you just repeat what you said a minute ago about, there you go. There you go. And just speak nice and loud.
Would you like to discuss some of this tonight, or would you like it tonight, or would you like to have it on, work on it, and we can have it on our work it through that way. On Christine's comments about communication, how we want to deal with it. Craig,
are we good? I would. My general feeling is that you can't really have too much communication. I think we do have to be a little bit careful in terms of are we speaking as a group, as a board, as opposed to speaking as individuals who happen to be a member of the board. There may be kind of two different views that you would take depending upon which hat we were wearing at a particular time. I think all of these initiatives that I'm aware of, at least, are positive, and they will get us moving in an appropriate direction. But once again, I think we need to tread a little bit carefully in terms of comments from the board in total, as opposed to comments from board members as individuals.
Craig, I'm sorry. First of all, I'm so sorry, but I did not hear Arlen again. There's something with the streaming that he's coming through as if he's speaking on do you remember the old albums of 78 and you put them on a 33 or 45 for those of us who remember albums? Tom, is that your case as well?
Yeah, and I think if everyone mutes their microphones, maybe it'll be better, because I was getting some feedback or some weird, I don't know if it's Andrew or Craig or whoever, whatever. But yeah, I could not understand what Arlen said. It's entertaining though.
And I think I also, Craig, I wasn't referring to the diversity and equity stuff. I was more actually referring to just you know, like a welcome letter for the school and how things are different and the staff. So I'm not sure if that's what you were referring to, Craig. But I also didn't hear Arlen's first comment. So maybe you could say that again, Arlen. I'm so sorry for making you repeat it again.
No, what I was wondering if we should be discussing it or just think on it and then have it and bring more to the table next time. And then we could probably digest it better and have probably a stronger comment. But if people were comfortable, we could certainly discuss it tonight too. But I want to know how everybody felt. I just didn't want to be God and try to make a decision.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Yep.
It's everybody's
Yeah.
opinion.
So absolutely, and let me just share in the context of board comments where I'm providing just a comment. It's more about recognizing that the staff survey, and I forget the community too, just having board communication, and I was throwing that out there, knowing that as we move into a new year, if we could think about that. So I didn't expect a decision, and I didn't even really have a particular topic, but it might be something that we could think on for the next week or two. And once again, I don't know all the processes. So do we bring it up at that next meeting, or are there things we can work on before that? I'm certainly game for either, but it was more about recognizing that was a goal of ours. And that we might have an opportunity in the next few weeks to do something like that. That's all. So.
I think the best would be we would know what we have in front of us on that week anyway, and if it's available and that we want to work through something, we could certainly put it on there. And go with it. I think when we look at doing this and spacing out, we all are cautious that something can come up, but I think it's a great suggestion, and I think it's a good discussion point, and it's just when we do it, I think, and the sooner it'd be nice, but we don't know where we're at. We do, but it wouldn't take long for anything to change, So, but I like to. I think everybody's in agreement that I think that'd be a good talking point, a good something for us to discuss and work through.
I muted myself.
Okay. I think that's an excellent idea, and perhaps in the next, couple weeks between now and when we meet again, we all think about what we would want included in, say, start of the new year letter to both, the community at large and then to the staff here in the schools. And I think we get so I don't want to say bogged down, but there's so many little things that we go through that sometimes it's good to be reminded of the big picture. So that's really great that Christine did that. And I don't know, this is not on the same subject, but it is a board comment, and since I'm already unmuted, I might as well tell you. So I am now on the CISA 2 Board of Control for our little area around here in Dane County. So those meetings are on Tuesday nights. And so I'm learning all about CISA and what it does. And so.
When under normal circumstances, they meet, I think, in Whitewater. I had sat in that role for a time myself, and this was during normal times. We used to meet down at Whitewater
That's where their offices are.
Yeah. But those are real interesting meetings. It really gives you a perspective of all the different districts.
Well, it was a surprise.
So if we don't have any more comments and we're at the end, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
And second,
I'll second.
Christine. All right, motion from Ann. Any questions or comments? Probably not. Motion from Ann, second from Christine. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are out. 8:05.
Well done, everyone. Nice meeting. Way to go.
I really appreciate everybody being there today. That was really, you know, how we did that. That was really
Yep.
pretty special.
Thank you,
That
everyone.
was
That
really
was a good time.
something pretty neat.
Thumbs up from
Thank you
Melissa.
very much.